Hey everybody, Nick Williams and Brandon Elliott here with the Smart Program. Just wanted to get our first joint podcast here together, B.
First one, man.
And so what we're going to hopefully try to do here going forward is we've done some strictly audio. There may still be a few that we have to do that way. But ideally we want to try to give you guys a little bit of insight into Brandon and I, kind of our interactions and how we go back and forth a little bit. And hopefully we can bring you guys some value. And just have some fun. I mean, really, it'll be more like us just sitting and talking like we would any other day. We'll talk about current events. We'll talk about this one specifically. We're going to tell you guys a little bit more about how we got to where we are with the Smart Program. It's a story we tell when we have time. But, you know, I don't know if people really know, Brandon, like why did these two 30-something-year-old guys decide they wanted to start delving into a nurse and a sales guy? Why did they want to start delving into the world of social media? So if you've never heard us or seen what we do, social media, the SMART program is a social media awareness and responsibility training program that myself, Nick Williams, and my co-founder over here, Brandon Elliott, started. What has it been now, Brandon? About a year?
Yeah, we started in May. Our first presentation was in May, the JOG presentation, Job for Ohio Graduates, which to be a first presentation, hey, go speak to the best students in Ohio, in Columbus, as your first one. It's pretty intimidating, but it was a good start for us. A nonprofit organization. We actually started out as a for-profit organization. If you remember that, I don't even know.
Yeah, that was a short-lived venture, but
and we realized that for us to be super successful and to get the athletes, the celebrities involved, they wanted to be more of a nonprofit, so it didn't feel like we were using their name to become superstars, so to speak, or whatever they thought we were going to try to do with this thing.
Right.
So we became nonprofit, and for those who don't know, nonprofit is tough.
I mean, it's definitely it's no joke. I mean, it's rewarding, but it's tough.
Every day's a grind. One thing that has been a crazy positive to me is the amount of people that you meet once you say that you are a nonprofit, and it just brings a different feel to people. That they feel like you are immediately bringing a service, no matter what it is. If you're a nonprofit, you're bringing a service, and people want to be involved in services. I mean, just initially when they found out we were a nonprofit, they immediately sent us to a guy named Jay Moore with the SCORE program, and Jay has been huge to us, but even us being a nonprofit there, Jay sent us off to other people. Campus Suite with Eric Folkert, who has been our guy to this point, who found us Palmer. So all the videos you see on social media, the great logos, the website, our guy Palmer kills it. That's him.
Palmer Stevens is the man. If you ever need any work done, I would highly recommend getting in touch with us and then allowing us to get you in touch with him, because easy to work with. He makes you feel comfortable. He's done a lot of voiceover work. So when you get in front of the camera, he's got some little tips and techniques. I remember that first time we went over to the place where he had everything set up. And you walk in and, it's not like a big studio or anything, but it's still super intimidating. I mean, for somebody who's never been, I think it's funny for me, people that knew me in grade school and high school, I was actually really shy and I won't say introverted, but like I wasn't very outgoing. I wasn't very confident necessarily of myself, except in very specific, usually sports-specific situations. And those who knew me from probably my even freshman year of college on, because of Purcell and all the things that it kind of gave me, it just changed. Like when I got around a different group of people, like I was like, wait a minute, like, this is who I am, and I think that's who you see today is this kid that grew up to be a little bit more outspoken, a little bit more not afraid to put himself out there and kind of make a fool of himself at times. But with all that, you get in front of the camera and it goes back to the kid that had Coke bottle glasses and a Justin Bieber comb over before my man Bieber had it. And just a shy kid.
We call it the helmet.
Yeah, like I mean, and I think people that know Brandon and I now would maybe say, we're both really easy to get along with, both easy to talk to, but as far as antics go, I'm probably the more over the top, eccentric, very animated guy, and Brandon's the much more calm, very calculated, very composed person, which is that's part of why we work probably a little bit.
It makes sense. And if you see our presentation, we were just talking about the last. We were at Children's Hospital speaking to the American Assembly for Men in Nursing, and we looked at the presentation that we put together specifically for them, and it was Nick has all the emotional slides, and Brandon had all the educational slides. And we were thinking about mixing it up, but it's like, no, that's who we are.
Yeah, I was
it
like,
fits us perfectly
B,
fine.
like, are you sure you're good with this, man? Like, do you want any of these like ooh and ah moments? He's like, no, I'm good. And then I was, in the same token, I was like, do I need to be like the fact-based guy? And it's not that I don't, that Brandon isn't animated or have those emotional pieces. He very much does, especially if you see him on the golf course. But when you talk about or I'm not from an educational piece can't deliver fact-based information. No, that's not it at all. I mean, I think we both have those qualities. But it definitely comes out in our presentations. It comes out even when people meet us. And so, but Palmer, back to that, he makes you comfortable. And if anybody's ever been in front of a camera, whether it was the time that I did with him or even at that Fox 19, when they, you walk into this setup and it's like, oh my, and then like you sit down and all of a sudden 30 seconds later they're rolling cameras in front of you and I'm looking down at my phone at notes that I don't even need. Like, it's things that I know inside and out, but it's a nervous tick. So all that long story to tell people, use Palmer Stevens. He's an awesome dude. Good human, but really good at what he does on the technical side. So Brandon kind of got into it a little bit. We want to tell you guys a little bit just quickly about why we started, but then kind of give you a quick review of the past year and how hectic and crazy and balancing our jobs, families and this nonprofit, just kind of how it's been, because it's crazy. It literally is crazy. Even talking about tonight at I'm not sure when we'll get this out, but it's 5:30 on a Friday, and we're trying to get this in so that we can all still go do our family time here very shortly. But short version of why we started, Brandon and I both went to Purcell Marion. We both were athletes at Purcell and went on to play college athletics. About 4 years ago now, Coach Brian Lake at the time, good friend of babysat you, right, B?
Yeah, the babysitter.
Babysat Brandon, was part of him and his brother Ken were a big reason why why I wound up at Purcell at the time. Because you might not know, but I could actually play a little bit when I was in grade school. Didn't really translate much. The lefty that nobody could figure out. I just went left every time. But that all said, he had a group of 5 freshmen that came in to Purcell and was trying to revitalize the basketball program and breathe air back into it. And these 5 kids were going to be that, and they turned out to be that for Purcell. But he didn't have anybody to push him as freshmen. They were the best kids in the school.
Players. Yeah. And at 14 years old, that's not a good combo. So he's calling us up saying, "Hey guys, I need help, and not just help practicing with these kids, which we did, and we brought our buddy Keith and Xavier, and they like to see him dunk and things like that. But also we helped these kids with homework."
Really, whatever they needed. I mean, we were there.
It was everything. And then finally, one of the kids, Nick's a shoe guy. If you guys don't know Nick, he's a shoe guy. And he had some Jordans, and a few of those players were shoe guys, to say the least. And they were obsessed with Nick's shoes. And I think they had the same size shoe, and maybe a size smaller.
Man, some of them wearing like, I wear a 9. So like, I think Peyton at the time was wearing an 11.
He didn't care.
He was trying to fit into my shoes. I'm like, Peyton, you're out of your mind.
So, I mean, when they saw that, and 14, 15-year-olds, guys in 2012 or 13, they want to follow you. They want to talk to you. Well, you talk on social media, you talk on text, and it just led us down a spot where they found Nick before me on the social media stuff. I was more of just texting, and I would talk to them about their homework and things, and they started talking to Nick more on social media. And what did you see? I mean,
yeah, I mean, it was just kind of crazy. And then it wasn't necessarily the kids we were dealing with per se, but but they were. I mean, they were 14, and so whether it was quoted in a rap lyric that talked about things that they weren't really doing. And don't get me wrong, back in the days of AOL Instant Messenger, when I'd have my away messages up, they were every time Jay-Z lyrics. So I get that piece of it. I'm a music guy too.
Yes, yes.
But when you're quoting 99 Problems as what you're putting out there on social media, if every other word is the B word, that's a problem, right? Or talking about the weight you're moving, even though you might be talking about in regards to basketball, but how Jay refers to it, Jay-Z refers to it in a much different way. So it just led us down a path, but that led us to friends of friends of friends of friends, and we both have kids, and so it was just like, man, these athletes
Scary.
are putting a lot out there, and then you start hearing more and more in the news about this person lost a scholarship, this coach is in trouble, this guy's suspended, this is happening, this professional athlete deleted their account and said they were hacked. So it just was like a light flipped, and we were like, wait a minute. And what I know is that for myself, the ability to, I didn't have a bad upbringing. My mom and dad were fantastic people. They gave me everything I needed. But for a lot of the people that whether we went to school with or that we know or the athlete stories that you hear, their way out is to use athletics to also gain their education and get school paid for.
Free school is okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ask anybody. From our valedictorian to the guy that got only a scholarship because of grades and athletics. It doesn't matter. Free school is free school. I don't care what you say. So we just, for somebody to lose that opportunity, to not have an opportunity to better themselves, their family, to whether it's from breaking a cycle or continuing a cycle. It's not about always the first era graduation, the first person from your family to do da-da-da-da-da. Sometimes it's about you might be the fourth, fifth, sixth person that's but you don't want to let that piece down. And maybe for me, for example, Brandon was an honor student. Brandon was involved in every club known to Purcell. I, on the other hand, only did sports and was, I didn't write school off, but it wasn't my thing. Like, I didn't do what I needed to do or I should have done. I did it enough to have a good GPA that schools were willing to, obviously take me in, but I never gave it as much focus as I probably needed to. But the reason I went to college was so I could play sports. So sports was the driving force that kept me going to class.
Right.
I mean, that's the reality. And I think that's the reality. Brandon, would you say especially when you talk D3, D2, even D1?
I was an honor student. My junior year of college was brutal, but I knew I had to go to class if I wanted to play Saturday in a football game. I mean, it's, and some, fair or not, people need that stuff. People need it, and it could be different for people. It could be ballet. It could be, you're in the band or whatever it may be, but there needs to be that something that drives you.
Yeah, no doubt.
And for us, it was sports. And for a lot of people, a lot of students that we've talked to already, it's been sports. And so when we got going on this thing, it was for student athletes. I mean, and we wanted to make student athletes more aware of what they're putting out there, more responsible. Kind of our slogan: "Be aware, be responsible." And then we did the presentation and we started talking, and it was like everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did like one presentation, and very quickly it was like, no, we're going to talk to the whole school.
Everybody needs this.
And it wasn't just our feeling; it was the administrators that we spoke with. It was everybody we talked with was like, hey, this needs to be a total focus, not just an athletic-based focus. And I mean, to kind of wrap this part of it up, so that's kind of how it all started. The why. Some people ask, well, why? Why did you guys care enough? I did it partially for my 25-year-old self, my 24-year-old self, the guy who was working at a Fortune 500 company who didn't know any better to not necessarily always bring his personal life, and not that I was doing anything bad, but just, to be more aware about what I was sharing with coworkers, and it's magnified now for people because of social media. So that's why I did it, is for that 24-year-old, 23-year-old Nick that's out there, but also for the kids who are are in similar situations. We all, Brandon and I, have a line that we tell everybody. Everybody's got a story to tell. You never know who your story is going to resonate with, and so we won't get into what my story is or anything like it. It's not a, I'm not Annie.
Right.
But at the end of the day, my story resonates with a lot of kids. There's a lot of kids that were in a similar situation that I found myself in, that I think resonates with them, and it makes a difference. And I think we've heard that. And why would, for you, Brandon, what was the why, do you think, that, got you started?
Life is hard. Life is hard anyway, and then you put social media in the mix, where everything you put out there, everything you talk about, everything you say, everybody knows about. So for me, it was this is another obstacle for a 15, 16, 17, now 10, 11, 12 at this point, year-old to screw up. And as a young black guy, it's hard anyway. As a young white guy, it's hard. Whatever you want to say. As a lady, it is hard to succeed now. And then you throw this in the way. So when we said we wanted to talk to kids about social media, I'm like, hey, I didn't even use it that much back then when we first started looking at this. I wasn't a big fan of it. My wife was on it quite a bit. My family's on it. But it's not going away. It's all. People say, oh, it's just a new fad. It's not going away. This isn't a fad. This is the rest of life. So why not teach these kids, just like we teach them math, just like we have them sign up to do the drug and alcohol, no drug, no alcohol during the season or whatever, during school. It's like we have them do all these different things. Why not give them the awareness that they need to be successful in this thing, so they don't screw themselves up, so they don't have another obstacle to deal with? And it was a no-brainer. You said, hey, let's talk about this, let's do this. Yeah, absolutely. I was in 100% as soon as you brought it up.
And I think the positive side of it for us is that like we just said, everybody has a story, but everybody's got circumstances. So when you think that nobody else has ever had it as hard, or have either as hard or haven't had the same bad luck, or aren't down and out at some point in time, you're just not right, because somebody else, now to what extent I don't know, everybody's path is a little bit different, but to be able to show people that, whether it's, you hear a lot of, oh, you can't make it from Cincinnati, to debunk that myth, to debunk the fact that if you don't, if you're not an honor roll student, that you can't be successful. Social media is a quick and easy way for us to be able to show kids, 15, 14, 16, 17, 25-year-old kids, that they're wrong. We just talked to a guy who went from GED to PhD.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to say that again, GED to PhD. That's crazy. I mean, but it's hard work. I mean, it's
hard.
His path was a lot harder than his counterparts probably, but at the end of the day, his counterparts have a story too. So that's a little bit of the positive. This past year, it's been crazy. Started, as Brandon mentioned, at the JOG conference in May of 2015. We were fortunate enough to be invited back because of the good reviews that we got. And looking back, oh boy, I'm glad we got good reviews, but 2016 was just a major difference. I mean, in how we delivered our message, what our message was, how much better we were at delivering the message. I mean, I don't think that first pass at the JOG, I don't think we finished either presentation.
No, we didn't.
Because we had too much information because that's the hard part.
We just didn't know what was right. And but what's good about that whole year is that we got hundreds and hundreds, thousands of students' feedback. What was good, what was bad. We found out what we should add and what we should delete, what was real and what was just fat, and it was fun. But I was going to put up a Throwback Thursday yesterday of one of the pictures from that event, but they weren't even good.
Yeah, it's
even good. Nothing was. It was pretty subpar, but it was a great presentation. It was.
The information was still there. It was factual. The two of us delivering the information and how we can try to relate to the kids. I think that's what sold it. We try to make the presentation very interactive. For anybody that's seen it, I think they would attest to that. But the difference in a year, what a year makes. Even when you look back to the Hughes presentation that we did, it was still very good, but we had simple PowerPoint that Brandon and I did, and now the one we have is just much more aesthetically pleasing. Palmer, great job with that.
But even
just
the one
everything.
we had Mike Wright there, our buddy, former New England Patriots. We had Andre Frazier,
Pittsburgh Steelers.
He came back.
Super Bowl champion.
First time going back to Hughes was when he came back with us, and then we had Nick's old boss, Bill McDermott.
Yeah,
He's a business owner and stuff, and
the support, I think, and I think that's the thing that we'll kind of, you'll hear us go back on. I mean, the support that we've gotten from people, even like a guy like Andre Frazier, who didn't know Brandon or me from anything, it's been awesome. But to be able to connect a guy like Andre Frazier, who hadn't been back to Hughes since he graduated, like that was so crazy. And I think that's the thing this past year that I've really enjoyed, working with the kids, helping the kids, like that piece of it, hopefully turning it into a mentorship, like that piece of it, and the interactions we've had with students that after our presentation, like the communication. Right. Brandon just went and saw one of the students we gave a presentation to at Summit give her own presentation on cyberbullying, and he said it was fantastic. So we won't say her name, but great job on that. Really proud of that and how we were able to communicate with her throughout that process. But being able to do those type of things, meeting people like Teddy Kramer, the Reds bat boy who had a phenomenal story, working with a guy like Matt Michael down at corporate, who is so about the community and making a difference. Working with a guy like Alex Meacham, who's all about community and building, helping kids become not just better basketball players, but better people.
What about, just take it all the way back to Adam Lane.
Yeah, our guy Adam Lane, who helped. Honestly, for me, it's as silly as it sounds, like it was about getting the branding piece, because one of the big pieces we talk about it's perception, respect, and brand, and we didn't have a logo, and so Brandon's like ready to get this thing going, and I'm like, Brandon, we can't do anything until we're branded, because how are we going to go stand in front of somebody and not have our own brand?
You are a brand, but we don't have one.
It just seemed crazy, so we met with Adam Lane, whose wife Mandy cuts my hair, if you guys ever need a haircut. Black ladies too, Black Rabbit Salon over in Evanston, East Walnut Hills, I guess you can say, right by Purcell. Phenomenal job. Very, the price is right too. But yeah, he kind of, talking to him helped push me where I needed to go, which I think helped me get on the pace that Brandon was already on, to ready to get this thing steamrolling, which introduced us to Tom Brewer, and so the connections just continue to be huge. Just got off the phone with Jordan Cornette, former St. X and Notre Dame basketball player, currently a broadcaster for CBS Sports for college basketball. The continual support we have from all these people, not because they like it, yes, because they like Brandon and I, or get to know us, but reaching out via social media. We DM'd Jordan Cornette.
Yeah.
We DM'd Alex Meacham. We DM'd all these people.
Jeff Ruby.
To say, hey, how
Carlos
can
Gill.
What can we do to get you guys to, and it's really within the first 2 sentences, I think, when we tell them what we're trying to do, it's like a no-brainer. Even when we met with Norwood High School, we met with Rob Amodio, the superintendent, and literally, we've done a lot of these meetings. Some meetings you walk out and go, I don't know if they liked it, hated it, I don't know what to think. Within the first 5 minutes of that meeting, I knew we had something good.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant, but I could tell he got it. He understood the importance, the relevance of him and Principal Winterrod and Miss Amodio asking the questions that they were asking.
Right.
And just him even saying, not Norwood necessarily, but schools are dealing with this on a weekly, monthly, daily basis, where they're having to figure out how they're either going to discipline or correct social media issues.
And that's scary. That's so far for me, going into these schools and bringing the awareness to the students, but also the teachers that are listening, and then talking to the schools about what we're doing. That's probably the hardest part, because you can tell that the supervisors, the administrative folks at the schools are like, well, if we have this, now we have to deal with this. Now we have to do the next step, because they know what to say. They've been taught how to enhance their brand. They've been taught the awareness. They've been taught the impact. They've been taught the responsibility. So far, that's been the toughest part for me, leaving the schools. Oh, it's great presentation, great stuff. It's on you guys now. I mean,
Yeah,
so
but they get to be proactive instead of reactive now. I mean, they can go to the kids and say, hey, you guys, we talked to you, just like you said, B. I mean, we talked to you guys about this, so you know that this wasn't the right thing to do. And I think one thing we try to leave the kids with, be who you're going to be. If you want to be a rapper, if you want to be an engineer, you want to be a doctor, I don't care.
do it.
Be any of those things. You have to understand you need to own whatever the lane is that you're going to own, so commit to it. Be the best that you can be and try to really focus on that lane. But understand freedom of speech is not freedom of consequence. Understand that some of the things you put out may not resonate with a certain company or a certain brand or certain things. But also understand you're going to make mistakes. Our job is not to try to make you guys perfect angels. It's to minimize what those mistakes are, especially when you're talking about 5 pain points of sports, race, religion, gender, and politics. I mean, those 5 areas.
You're gonna make a mistake.
That's where Nick's going to
to
make a mistake. That's where Brandon's going to make a mistake. That's where each of these kids is probably going to make their mistake in some way. And for the kids, you add a major 6th one in there, which is cyberbullying. It's no longer just
brutal.
the face-to-face classroom bullying.
I wish it was.
Yeah, I mean, that's easier almost to combat because you can really. Sometimes it's hard with the cyberbullying to even figure out where it's coming from because there's so many different anonymous apps and things like that.
Doesn't stop.
And now it can be not just one classroom or school. Now it's nationwide sometimes. I mean, there's kids, you might have a friend in California who retweets something and now his all, so it's just crazy. But at the end of the day, I can tell everybody confidently that I know we're making a difference. I can show you the testimonials if you need to see them, from the students to the teachers to the principals to the
Athletic
superintendents to the business owners to the people like Dr. Keith Riplow who support us, to Craig Stamen, to Dante Dye, just name dropping all over the place.
Right.
But no, the reality is these are all people who are respected in their professions, who have built a brand for themselves, and they're standing right there with us saying we want to make a difference. And so that's really important, I think, to us. So that's a little bit about our past year. There's all kinds of funny stories that we'll get into maybe on another cast. Whether it's going to the JOG this year and realizing that I accidentally had kept my wife's keys in my glove box from the weekend, and we're about 30 minutes out from Cincinnati. I had to turn around because she had to take the kids to to school and get to work. Had to turn around. We were supposed to be in Columbus by 8:30. Our presentation was at 9:30. Got to Columbus at 9:20.
Yeah, we were supposed to be here at 8:30.
So there's just all kinds of fun stories like that of, some people might see the presentation, even the summit presentation. We had Ray Ball, who owns her own digital media company and a food blogger, who actually hooked us up with 19 News. Ray, appreciate that. Thank you. That was huge. She was there. Troy Tuck, a guy that we work with closely in his nonprofit of the Game Plan. And Tyler Carter from Brad Redford Basketball. We had several people there to watch us, and they kind of got there as things were about to start. But everybody didn't realize we didn't even have any audio for our presentation up until 2 minutes before. So, we're sweating bullets. We get there super early. We think we're going to be videoing it. We're going to do this, do that.
50 kids.
This is Summit Country Day, one of the most prestigious schools in the city that we're about to deliver this presentation to their principal, to St. X, Steve Speck, the football and Dean of Discipline at St. X, Mariemont's principal. They're all there, and we're panicked because we don't know if our tech's gonna work. So we're about to have to deliver a presentation with no anything. And fortunately, the gentleman that was there, he got it all worked out, and in the 5th quarter in overtime, if you will.
It was cutting it a little close.
And it worked, but we could tell you stories. So when you see this presentation, or you see what looks like something we got great feedback from, Marymount even actually called us and brought us in next year because of it. There was a lot of setbacks to get to that very, very moment. So one of our messages to kids, it's never over, it's never done. There's going to be obstacles, but don't put an unnecessary obstacle in your way by causing yourself an issue on social media.
Right.
So that's a little bit about us. in these video podcasts, whatever you want to call them, blogs, however, vlogs, going forward, it's going to be a little bit more. We're going to talk about current events. We're going to bring in guests. We had a great audio cast with Ray Ball. We also had a great one with Jay Thomas. We've got one with Coach Huber from Mount St. Joe that we're going to release here shortly. We're just going to try to have some fun, try to make it like we're sitting here. Man. But we're going to try to bring value and talk topics and, just talk about things that are relevant in the world today, society today. Try to bring in people that are doing good things in the community as well. And one thing we want to try to do, and we're going to call the segment that when they get to tell you about what they do. If you don't know, now you know, baby. Not all that, but that's what it's going to be. I'm a hip hop guy, so I'm anytime I can fit Biggie or Jay-Z into it, I'm going to do it. But at the same time, I go to the Chicago concert every year. The Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Versatile.
John Cougar Mellencamp. I mean, so don't get it wrong. We're all over the place. But we're also going to want to try to bring you guys. We don't know what we're going to call it yet. It's a work in progress. But
if you have any suggestions, please.
Yeah, like let's hear from the crowd, if you will. But we want to kind of talk about a positive social media experience from the moment, and also a negative social media experience from the moment. So, B, why don't you give them what we picked out as our positive pick of this moment?
Chewbacca. That's all I need to say. I'm sure you've all seen it. This lady just laughs, and she's wearing a Chewbacca mask, and she's laughing, and
I watched it, and I was like, "This is it."
Do anything but smile or laugh at it. Guys, nothing negative came from the video. It's fun. It's exciting. You can show your children.
It broke Facebook views.
It was.
And she was literally trying to share it with like the 100. She doesn't have a huge following on Facebook, or at the time she didn't.
But one of the things that we talk about that add fuel to this, to make this what I would call the smart programs. We think it's a gold star. Is that we talk about what value do you bring. This is bringing laughs to people. It makes people laugh. There's nothing wrong with that. We watch the news all day, every day. We see news, and 95% of it is negative because that's what's going to get the views. But this makes people smile as soon as they see it. But also, just the other piece of it. Because of this, people started looking further into her, and what did they find? Not much negative. To the point where now people are going to school for free.
Her whole family, a Christian university in Florida, is offered to allow her husband, her kids to go to college for free because they love what she does with her church and her community. So it's also about understanding her reach. She didn't have a ton of followers, but it got shared, and all of a sudden, the lady laughing in a Chewbacca mask now has free schooling for everyone in her family, and she has more Chewbacca mask than she could probably ever shake a stick at.
Right. But I mean, let's try to dig in there a little bit more into the whole deal. I'm sure she didn't expect to go viral. Let's just be honest. She didn't expect to go viral. But people think that you only go viral when you're putting together a movement like the Ice Bucket Challenge, which was incredible.
They think it's really calculated.
Right. Fair or not, people are going to go viral
unexpectedly.
And for example, our guy Teddy, we're talking Teddy Kramer from Todd Frazier. They have their moment. He goes viral. The guy's not even on social media. Neither is his family. His mom told us that he's booked every day for the rest of the year. He is booked somewhere.
Yeah, he just did a book signing.
This is he's viral. He came. We met him at a Tucker Barnhart signing, and he had his own line when he walked in the door.
Yeah, people were
incredible.
Excited to see him.
The Chewbacca story, this fits. She wasn't expecting to go viral. Remember that kind of stuff. The impact that you guys have when you post things. Her family, her children, her husband are now in the limelight now. That's school.
Everybody. Kohl's is getting a lot of positive publicity because they reached out and gave her more free masks and things like that. So is it part of it, to Brandon's point, that yes, that maybe she thinks somewhere on an off chance somebody would pick it up and think it was funny? She didn't think 300 million people were going to think it was this funny, or envision all these things. So yeah, it's definitely sometimes it's calculated, but good or bad, it can be calculated or uncalculated, off the cuff, and it could mean a lot. So then let's talk about the other side of it, which is the downside. We're based out of Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Zoo had a very unfortunate incident over the past weekend where a young boy, wandered off from mom and crawled into a gorilla enclosure. And unfortunately, the gorilla had to be put down because of the safety for the boy. In that initial moment, I probably felt like a lot of people, like, how could you ever let that happen? Having 2 kids, I just, the immediate reaction, I'd never let my kid do that. That's what we all say, right? Like, it would never happen to me. We all say it would never happen to me, right. And so it happens to us. But I took a minute, and I thought, and I said, well, wait a minute. I'd be ignorant or crazy to say it would never happen to me. I'd be ludicrous to say that would never be me. I go to the zoo every week, pretty much with my kids because we have a pass, and I'm super overprotective, and I feel like I'm watching them very well. But there was overflow parking that day. There was hundreds of other parents there that also didn't see this happening. So for that mom in that moment, I felt terrible for her. Whether I thought maybe it was neglect on her part or maybe she did do something, she made probably the worst mistake of her life in that moment. What came of that was insane. So Brandon texts me like, have you seen the Facebook post about Michelle Gregg, the mom who's, this happened to? No, what do you mean? I didn't want to tune it out because I'm an animal person. It was a
horrible,
terrible thing.
Horrible.
A friend that works at the zoo, know how hard it hit her. I didn't want the gorilla to get killed, but at the same time, like, I knew that they had to make a decision in a matter of seconds on what they were going to do to keep this little boy alive. But the spew and the hate that came from it, from other people who had no idea of what the story was, but just read it, that an endangered species is killed because a mom neglected to pay attention to her kid, all of a sudden, people found out where she worked. And then all of a sudden, now they're sending messages. They're rating her place of employment as negatively as they can on Facebook. They're using the F word. You need to effing die, you B word.
It was just hatred. Any form of it, it was hatred. To the point where people were signing petitions to take her job.
Yeah, to have her fired.
To have her fired. The latest one is now they've figured out who the father of this child is, and they went and found his criminal record.
And he wasn't even there that day.
And this is when you're on social media. We tell these kids this all the time, Nick. You put yourself out there.
Yeah.
When you put yourself out there, this is what it's going to be. There are people out there. I'm hoping that as our program grows and we leave Cincinnati a little bit more and we do things and we find people that are SMART certified to speak for us in other areas of the state, country, whatever, that we start eliminating some of these things, because this is the problem. This is when people go off and kill themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, what all these people fail to realize, I don't mind if you think that, even if you want to say that she's the worst parent in the world, I'm not necessarily, that's your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion.
Right.
I'm not here to change that. What I'm saying is, what value, to Brandon's point earlier, did you bring by calling her all these names under the sun? Because you know what I did when I started to read these comments? I started to click on those people's profiles and see who are, and where do you work? Because I don't want to deal with them. What do you do? Because here's the reality: we all have something in our past that we're probably not happy about. So, don't cast that stone if you're not ready for people to come back to you. Because that's how I saw it. Again, whether you thought it was her fault or not, or the zoo was wrong, or any of those things, have your opinion. But there's a way you can say, hey, I think it was a very unfortunate situation. I don't think I would ever, I don't think I would ever be a parent that happened to, and I don't agree with their parenting. I'm even okay with that. But to go and start cursing people out and do the kind of stuff that they did, it's just unfortunate. So for me, that was the biggest social media disappointment over the last couple weeks. And it's just unfortunate. So just understand, you never know who's watching. You never know when you're making that rude, snide comment or that inappropriate language, that you never know who's going to see it. So that's our good, that's our bad. That's kind of, for this cast, I think that's really what we have for you guys for today. we're going to try to do these monthly with Brandon and I. We're going to try to do a bi-weekly where it's got a guest involved. So we'll keep it up to date.
Yeah.
Spread the word. Please spread the word. Yeah.
Work in progress.
This is the first
we're
run.
Getting better, I promise. We're getting better.
This is the first run. We'll definitely do more of this. Want to leave you with a little outro music from a guy that we know that we met through the social media world, Matt Wall. CNX graduate, now down at Belmont University working on his sound engineer.
He's trying to work his way up to work with one of our buddies, Gerald Cooper and Young Guru, and it's in the works.
Yeah,
he's making his way up there. I mean, that's huge. Social media, the power. Use it. Be aware. Be responsible.
So this track is called Glory. This is again a Matt Wall production. Matt, we appreciate it. Again, I'm Nick Williams. My guy Brandon Elliott. We are the Smart Program, as Brandon mentioned. Go follow us. Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat.
Check out our videos on YouTube.
Facebook, YouTube. Go follow us. Thank you. Everybody have a good one.